Hi, I know that I'm late, but I watched this twice actually. I'm gonna tell you, Love and Marriage DC, Detroit. I keep saying that. I'm sorry. I really don't like Love and Marriage DC, and I keep saying that too. Anyway, Love and Marriage Detroit is so problematic. The men on this show and is just so ridiculous. And um Carlos King did an interview with Brandon. And that is exactly how he started off this interview, saying how the audience is immediately reacting to Detroit and how toxic all the men are. And and he's saying that I don't cast toxic men, I cast couples, and how a lot of couples are like this. Let me, I'm not in a bunch of people's houses and in the privacy of their own home. But I am going, and I did say that Detroit has had a few triggering moments for me. And I told my husband and I was actually watching Detroit this episode. The second time I was watching it, we were watching a little bit of it together, and I was talking to him about some of the people in it. And I guess my issue is this. I do think that some of the arguments is absolutely um I do think that some of the arguments do parallel what a lot of marriages do have in common. Like the idea, especially when you have kids, little kids, who makes a sacrifice more than like which parent is making a sacrifice when it comes to their career? Because depending on when you have the baby and depending on how much money you have, and it depends, you are going to have a conversation about a uh, a career, either a career shift or a major effect on the career in some way. And careers absolutely change when you have kids. And um, I understood Brandon's frustration in the sense that he sees that other people are having a different career path based on the woman that they married. Years ago, I had a conversation with the mother of a man I used to date. And I was like, him and oh, sorry, guys, I contact. Him and I did not, we never even got close to the conversation of marriage. But there's a reason why we could have never worked. And one of the main reasons is because in his mind, a relationship, he did not want an equal or someone who he thought would be on a different path. And I never thought that we were on different paths. Actually, I felt that he was in his own arena and he was doing things that I could never do. And he could do things that I am doing. Absolutely, if he wanted to. But I never thought that he particularly wanted to. And yet, the first and second woman he married, I think part of where he is career wise with both of them, the first one and the second one, is a lot different than if him and I were to have been together. Simply because he married two women who was not ambitious. And the second one is absolutely someone that is a good helpmate and not a partner. I think one of the best attributes that my husband and I have is we are good helpmates to each other. When he has a vision, I'm trying to figure out how to figure out his vision, help him to achieve his vision. When I have a vision, he provides suggestions and he is right there with pom poms, cheerleading. And we've had these same arguments that Brandon and Christina had. But I think the major difference for me is that they are both old. And I feel like this is a younger person. Brandon's response is a very childish response. And husband and I, we had these he would have these similar responses when he was like young. I just can't imagine someone at his age, Brandon's age, and because my husband at this age, we've been married for 13 years, he would not have these same responses. 12 years, sorry. And I just struggle with, and so Brandon to me is not necessarily a trigger for me and at most, but it's like, my gosh, you were so childish. And the way his responses are, and just little things like, I am not going to have a public argument with anybody. I'm not going to let my girls beat up on my husband, and he's not going to let his boys beat up on me verbally. Like, that is not going to happen unless our relationship is done. If I'm walking out the door and I have divorce papers drawn up, and I don't care what my friends say, and um, and he still wouldn't let his friends do that to me. So this first scene of Anthony and Bravo, is that his name? Going off on um going off on Christina about how she's hindering his business. The problem is you cheated. He's still on Carlos King's. He did a Carlos King interview saying he never physically cheated. Okay, you a lie. A woman is not going to, a side chick is not going to sit here and listen to you dog out your wife um, and not get anything for this. So you emotionally cheated? Is that that's what we're supposed to believe? yeah, okay. You emotionally cheated and you had sex with her. But okay, let's keep this lie lying. And she doesn't want to be bothered. And Christina is is legitimate in saying, what about my career too? I had a career. I'm sitting here at the house with these kids. You didn't give me no extra help, so I can still keep a career going. Now he's on Carlos King interview explaining that she did sacrifice a lot, and I just had to come to terms with that, and I realize that now. Yeah. Um, yeah, Latoya is like, I'm embarrassed. She eventually gets up and puts her arms around Christina. He should have shut this down. And it is Anthony and Bravo that eventually shuts it down themselves to begin to start comforting her because they realize that they took it too far. Isn't this amazing that they comfort her while she's explaining when she starts crying and she's explaining how her career is suffering and she could be with any other man who really wants to be with her. She begins to shut down and they and express herself and they shut down for her. They shut down their argument against her. Brandon doesn't shut them down. And in fact, as they're walking home, begins to antagonize her even more and then begins to say, well, do you want to be married to me and why? And then walk, talking about, I'm going for a walk and don't come back. You know, I'm sorry. I know they're still married, but and yes, marriages go through this, but this doesn't feel like there's an understanding here. I don't get it. But Christina wants to stay married. Brandon's like, you just want to stay married because you really want to be married. Because the idea of marriage is what you want. So you convince her to see. This is the thing that bothers me even more. So you're convincing her to then beg you to stay. Okay. I just think that Brandon is so childish. He really is. He really, really is. And I just cannot deal with him. So Latoya and Anthony, Latoya goes into him, talking about, okay, Anthony is like, the whole support, everybody should support each other as husband and wife. You're supposed to support each other in their business. And look what I did for you. I gave you the check for this business. He's like, okay, first of all, this is not what we're going to do. I am Latoya. That's why I know she's an AK. And I love how she's like, look, we're not going to do any more arguments. Like, this is the second event. We're not doing this anymore. And on top of that, how about you do what? Stay out of these people's marriage. It's not our business. There's that. Kobe, ugh, Kobe talks to her parents. I hate it when Russell came in talking about how her dad is going to convince her. The whole using the parents thing is so appalling, but this happens so much in church where the parents are going to sit down and they get so involved in people's marriage. And they do this because God told them. And look, I am not mimicking what God tells you. I believe that God does speak into our hearts, and I am a firm believer. But I really just hate the concept that marriage, that you feel that you have to interfere in other people's marriages because of what God spoke in your heart. I just feel like there has to be a better way. And a lot of times if oh, I don't, I am going to struggle with the concept that God would tell you to join school, hide it from her for weeks. I don't think you can convince me. And her parents are sitting here saying, the mom saying, well, sometimes God, you're trying to interfere with the relationship between this instead of the relationship, because this is greater than this. Yo, I think we need to pull up Paul. And on this rock, I build this church. And I think you also need to look at how he talks about the body of Christ. I also think we need to pull up Genesis 1 and looking at the creation and how Genesis 1, I think it's verse 3, and how God created man and woman on day 6. I just struggle that I don't believe this feels like Old Testament, and I need for people to wrap themselves into the New Testament because I just don't believe. Because if we want to really, really to get real, a lot of these ministers, evangelists, those working for the Lord, they're single. And being married as one meant that you communicate with the other. And there's no convincing. It is her relationship with God. This is how you will come to it. Russell, I feel that Kobe, I feel that the Lord is leading me to go to divinity school so I can be a chaplain in the military. Before we discuss it, how about you pray on this? And how about we fast and pray together? And then we'll talk about it and see what's best for our family. I think that she would have been okay with divinity school. She would have, if she would have thought that this was a partnership decision and that the Lord was speaking to both of us to do this. But instead, you talk to our parents. You have the parents come over to convince her. And then you made decisions already. Everybody's on board. And to hell with if Kobe doesn't like it or not. She'll figure it out and she'll get on board because God said it. And I do not believe that that's how it works. So I was annoyed with this whole conversation. She talks about how she wants to be informed. She feels that she wants to be a partner. Her dad says that she should consider how he feels and why he didn't want to tell you. Here's the thing. So it's okay that he lied and deceived her and hide things from her for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. He's been in school, so that means that he also had to sign up. He had to apply. He had to get accepted. So this is longer than a 3 to 4 week decision. He's been in school for 3 to 4 weeks. Not okay. But at this point, if she says no, then what? So now you breaking his covenant with God. Is that how you're going to toss this out? That's why I don't like this. They eventually actually go work out at do this rope challenge. And he's like, well, I'm becoming a pastor. And she's like, wait a second. I thought you said chaplain. So he eventually is going to be becoming a pastor. And he planted the seed and wants her to get over it. But she's like, I don't want to be a first lady. So what are you going to do? Twist her arm? That's essentially what you're going to do. And so this whole speech that he gives her, I just was like, I didn't even take notes on it because I was like, this is for the birds. It's bogus. I don't like it. Brandon and Anthony are talking. He hasn't been home. He's not talking to his wife. This whole Brandon. So Anthony tries to explain what happened with him and be going to Atlanta. Anthony is resentful and bitter, and he's going to keep bringing this up. He's brought it up every single episode over and over again. I am so tired of hearing it. And we're going to continue to keep hearing it. He even gets emotional at the end when he's sitting down with Coach Tim, former coach of the Detroit Lions, and Trace. And Anthony's talking about how he wanted to do film in Atlanta. He had to let it go because his family's more important. And he cries because he thinks that LaToya was not his support system. It's just the whole date night. We hear this again we heard it at date night and how he felt she wanted him to be a present dad, a day-to-day dad. You can fly back and forth. She's like, look, you had a house down there. You had clothes in a house. That meant you moved out. Technically, I don't think it necessarily meant that he moved out, but I get what you're saying. The point is, because it's probably cheaper than having a hotel room. So I get that concept, but he didn't get that to that part. But he's resenting her, and she says, he's resenting me for this. And he's like, no, I don't resent him, but resent her. He goes in, now this is where LaToya, you lost me. So her father's a bishop. She went to her father and told him everything. Father called him up and was like, I don't like what I'm hearing. You need to fix this. So Anthony feels that her whole family came after him. I don't like this. I don't like getting your family involved in your marriage to this extent. He felt he wasn't supported. So Brandon's like, we all have marriage problems. And, and Chelsea and Christina are talking. She's getting back, trying to figure out how to get back into the groove of her working. And she's like, look, I'm not going to cheat. I'm going to fight for my marriage. These are the worst men. And I don't know where y'all find these people. But whatever. And my friend was like, look, Elizabeth, all these men are like this. And I was like, yeah, well, that part's valid, but still, I can complain about what I'm looking at. And I will see y'all later.